Recently, I had a math test that I have to study for, and I didn't feel like doing it. I was sitting there and I was writing each problem over and over again. I was doing multiple practice papers. After I finished the practice paper that I was doing, I just asked ChatGPT to give me more questions and more questions because I seriously wanted a B plus or an A plus or A something because I kept failing maths when I was younger. Back when I was a kid and I was going through like normal school, like first to fifth grade, then fifth to 10th grade, I have failed like 80 to 90% of all of my math classes. But why? It's not because I wasn't motivated or, I didn't want to work hard enough. It's just that I hated math. I genuinely hated just doing math. Math just hurt my brain. Science was easy, English was easy, history was easy. But math just fucked me up. And so because I didn't like doing it, any motivation I had to study maths would just die off. So after doing 2, 3, 4 practice papers that ChatGPT gave me, varying in difficulty, eventually I got the hang of it. I started getting into flow. I started answering these questions over and over and over again. And I was like, wait, this is supposed to be a hard paper. But then I kept answering it. Obviously, I did get some wrong here and there. But overall, I'm actually good at maths. I did the test and I ended up getting a B plus. Now the B plus itself isn't that good of a grade, but for a guy like me who grew up hating maths, who just hated just writing the problem, literally I would go through so much like mental pain and strain just to write down the problem and think about the issue, think about the problem in front of me. When your motivation drops, when you're trying to do an activity, whether it's studying something for a test or working on your business or trying to create a project, you're bound to lose motivation. You'll get this initial spike of seriously good motivation for like the first week and a half. And then by the second week, you lose that motivation. It dips. You want to do it. It's not that you don't want to do it. It's just that you don't feel like doing it. Now here's the thing. This point, this 2-week point, is the turning point, and it's what defines who gets the rewards and who doesn't. Because everybody feels motivated. Everybody feels motivated to study. When there's an exam coming up or they watch this really motivational video, they get this boost of energy, which they use and they study. But by the point of 2 weeks later, they don't want to study anymore because they just don't feel like it. How stupid does that sound to you? Tell me right now, how stupid does what I just said sound to you? Is it like normal? Do you think it's normal for people to just lose motivation and then just stop studying? Or do you think it's just kind of stupid that like, wait, you wanted to study, you want that grade, you want that A plus, you want to finish that project, you want that business to work, but then you don't do it because you just don't feel like it? A lot of people go through this situation where they go through a week or 2 weeks without motivation. This might be you when you're watching this video. But I promise you, there's this analogy that I use, which I did use when I was studying, when I didn't feel like it at all. I hated it. I told you, it just hurts my brain. That automatically just made it super easy because it like tapped into some other selfish desire I have and then used it as energy in order to finish what I needed to finish. I want you to think of a really big round table, kind of like a dinner table, but it's a really big like round table. And every one of your competition is there. If it's your work, then it's like other businesses. If it's a classroom and there's like a test going on, it should be other students. And they all are around this round table. And on the round table are everyone's favorite foods. Like there's chicken, there's rice, there's mashed potatoes, there's boiled potatoes, there's beef, there's chicken karai, and all these favorite like foods that everybody wants. And these are kind of like the rewards. The only way you can get this food in your mouth and eat it is by taking your hand, maybe using a spoon, a fork, and putting in the work and then putting it in your mouth. It sounds very simple, right? But everybody's super hungry in the beginning, so they start eating, and like nobody owns the food on this table, but it is for people to take. It's free for everybody. They start eating, and eventually people start getting kind of full, they get kind of sick because they did it in the wrong way. But there's other people who want to finish this plate, so they start eating. There's people like bulking, there's people who want extra calories, so they start eating. and they're putting in the work to eat this food that's for the taking for absolutely everybody on this round table, but only a few finish the plates. Only a few get to eat like 30%, 40% of it. Why? Because as you work harder, the motivation kind of dies down. Because at first, everybody's really, really hungry. So you can imagine everybody's eating everything. It's like a buffet. But then as soon as people start getting full and kind of sick and like, bloated, but they need to finish their plate, they don't feel like it, and hence they don't. But the people who do, the people who don't care if they're hungry or not, they just want the food for themselves. They're selfish. They want to take other people's foods. They want to take the food that other people might take from them. So they start eating more. And they get to finish their plate. They get to own most of the food on the table. I want you to think of this exact analogy whenever you just lose your motivation to study. Because let's say there's 4 weeks to study for an exam, and you study for the first week, and everybody in your class studies for the first week, motivated and happy. By the second week, half of your class has already given up because they stopped the motivation. They didn't feel like doing it. And then by the third week, only like 20% of your class is left. And by the fourth week, there's only like 5% of you left to study for this one exam. Now, everybody had 4 weeks. Everybody had that round table. Everybody had the food that's for their taking. They just had to just take the forks and spoons and eat the food. They just had to sit down and study for an hour or two a day. But because they weren't hungry anymore, and because they didn't want it enough, other people took their foods. In other words, the 5% that you're part of, if you work up till that fourth week, you take up all the food that everyone else left behind. So you guys, including you, get A+, A's, A-, A+, sometimes a B+ maybe, and everybody else gets a C, D, F, E. And the only difference was you put in the work. The grades were there for your taking, and you put in the work. Now, if you're saying that, okay, let's study only for 2 or 3 weeks. In that case, after the second week, the people who study for 2 more weeks are going to take the food that's rightfully yours. Don't you want that food? Aren't you inherently selfish? Don't you inherently just want the grades more than other people? Don't you just want to compete and beat other people in this friendly competition? You're not hurting anybody's feelings. You're not hurting people physically. You're just getting the grades, and you have competition around you. Now, they're going to study a little bit more and get the grades that you genuinely want. They're going to study a little bit more and work harder than you. So the next time you don't feel like studying, just keep this in mind. There's a round table every single day full of food, your favorite food, the food that you want, and there's someone else next to you who wants that food. So every time you sit down on your phone and you decide not to study, just remember that. This isn't a tactic video. This isn't some video where I tell you, okay, top 4 ways to study better. There are videos like that might help you, but I don't want to give you that, because the more you watch those videos, the less you actually focus on doing the work, and the more you just focus on learning how to do the work, even though you yourself already know. If you like this video and you want to see more, click subscribe down there. It's a big red button. If you don't like this video, subscribe anyway, because I might make something that you genuinely like.